Welcome to Childcare Rockstar Radio. I am your host, Kris Murray. Childcare leaders around the globe are breaking through challenges, leading the way in innovation, testing new best practices, and impacting children and families in a much more powerful and positive way than ever before. Each week, join me for interviews with early childhood leaders and experts that will leave you inspired to become the next childcare rockstar. Now, let's go. This is Childcare Rockstar Radio, episode 109, featuring Shelly Smith. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. This is Kris Murray, your host, and I'm here at my podcast studio. We are very excited to bring you an incredible episode today. This one's going to be a little bit of a mind blow. We are talking about the world of professional assessments, really digging in with incredible tools that are going to be a game changer to your program. They have been a game changer to my company. And we're talking about the predictive index and all sorts of tools and assessments with expert Shelley Smith. And she is a leadership culture expert, and she's been helping preschools and childcare center owners for 3 or 4 years with improving their employee engagement, their hiring effectiveness, their retention, and their overwhelm and stress. Because when you get it right, not only do you have a huge return on investment on hiring the right people and onboarding and leading them well with strong cultures, but you have a huge return on time. And those are the concepts that we're going to dig into today on this incredibly powerful episode of Childcare Rockstar Radio. So over here in the home offices of Carbondale, Colorado, and the Roaring Fork Valley, which extends from Aspen to Glenwood Springs and beyond, for those of you that aren't familiar, we are having a very hot summer like the rest of the United States, much of it. Hang in there, everybody. We are in the dog days of summer, and people are so busy enrolling and hiring and getting back to hopefully a very successful and full of house fall of 2021. I need to remind you that as we cruise toward the Childcare Success Summit, and we are getting closer and closer each day, October 6th through the 9th, the evening of October 6th is when we kick it off with our big reception party. You got to be there at the Paris, Las Vegas. It's our 10th annual show, and the theme is a decade of magic. We have a lot of fun in store for you, some surprises. Some unannounced celebrities will be joining us, and you got to show up to find out who it's going to be, y'all. So excited. And I can't wait to see you there and give you a big hug. So if you have not gotten your tickets yet, you got to get in on our summer deal. It's at the website childcaresuccesssummit.com. And the summer deal expires on August 31st. So this is your last chance to get in on the currently priced deal. There's still some bonuses left, and still a darn good deal for what you're going to get with your ticket. So go there now and come on in before we sell out. The current number that I have in terms of the ballroom is we are over 1,000 people in with tickets in hand, and we just have a handful of tickets left. I think we're going to be able to squeeze around 1,200 people in the ballroom, but we are selling quickly. And so I need you to go and secure one of those last slots at childcaresuccesssummit.com. Shelley Smith, an extraordinary human. She is so smart and so fun. And I'm actually going to be with Shelley doing a session on stage from Las Vegas. And we talk about that in this podcast. What are you going to learn when we are together live? And how is it going to move the needle and change your game of your business and your life? And it has done that for me. Using Shelley's tools to hire the right person in the right seat has been one of the biggest game changers for us over the last 18 months. And I promise you that if you take the time to not only listen to this episode, but dig in a little bit on these tools, you will get your life back as a leader. You will get some sanity back. You will get, again, a huge return on investment. And inside this episode, Shelley shares some incredible stats around the return on investment that actual childcare owners have received from this tool. So you'll want to stay tuned and listen to the entire episode, because those stats aren't shared until close to the end. And don't fast forward. Enjoy. Here on episode 109, Shelly Smith. Let's dig in. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. I am very excited to introduce you to my guest today, Ms. Shelley Smith with Premier Rapport. Shelley, how's it going?
Oh my gosh, it's such a beautiful day. Life is great. How about you, Kris? How's it going?
Doing fantastic. It's pretty warm here in the mountains of Colorado, warmer than we might like, but
yeah.
What else is new in July and August?
What else is new in this ever-changing climate that we're in? Yes.
Yeah. Where are you right now?
I'm in Virginia. I was in Atlanta yesterday, in Georgia, and both places are just hot as poo, and melting pot of humidity. It's crazy, but it is what it is. The afternoon thunderstorms, craziness. So we're used to hot and humid in Virginia. So it's all
yeah. And where in Virginia?
I'm on the East Coast, so I am about 20 minutes actually from the ocean. So Newport News, technically.
Okay.
So
cool.
Yeah, a couple hours from the DC area for familiarity for those over here. So yeah.
Very, very good. So tell us a little bit more about you and what you do to help early learning companies and other companies.
Well, I have had the pleasure of working with a multitude of schools over the last, 3 years. And it's great to be inside of that industry. It's been obviously a whirlwind for those of you listening, as you very well know, over the last 12 to 18 months. But my wide range of everything I do is around workplace culture. And inside of that is the leadership development, the strategy sides, the appropriate tools and assessments to use. I'm a huge fan of the EOS system and traction. So bringing in all of those elements, and my approach is more of a generalist with a holistic culture and profitability approach. Huge proponent. You should never, ever do anything without a return on your investment. Should never go into contract with anybody over anything without understanding what it is, where you're at, and what you're going to measure. And so for me, I live in that people zone. And so there's all kinds of things that we can measure on the people sphere. Turnover is the most obvious, but the employee engagement piece, and of course the profitability. That's why businesses exist.
Yeah. Well, I love those big concepts, Shelley, and I want to dig in with you on this podcast about employee engagement and about the cost of turnover and how what you do helps people reduce turnover for sure. And Shelley and I have been working together with clients in common for about a year and a half, I think.
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
Shelley?
Yes.
And so, really any company can benefit from these tools that are in Shelley's toolkit, and we're going to dig into those. But really, the focus has been on the clients that we have in common and the listeners of this podcast, which is y'all, leaders and owners of early childhood companies. So how did you get into this field of work? Give us just a few highlights of your journey, if you would.
So as short as I can, I started working when I was 11. I'm 56 now. I have been working a long time. At least 4 of those decades, believe it or not, has been in the leadership realm. I grew up in an entrepreneurial home before that was called an entrepreneurial home. My dad always said, never work for anybody else. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. So I actually worked for Marriott Corporation. So a lot of the hotel industry side for 14 years. And then I went into the franchise side of hotels for one group for 8 years, one group for 2 years. I started off as a part-time desk clerk just to kind of go back in the Atlanta market, and worked my way up as an area general manager. I didn't want to move to DC at the time. That was the next move back then as an area manager. So I stayed here locally as an area manager with direct reports from the management side and the franchise side. I said, growing family. I have 3 kids, by the way, growing family. And I didn't want to move. So I literally went to the franchise partners that I knew. And I said, you need to hire me. Here's what I'm going to do for you. And I was blessed to get 3 offers as COO, 3 different locations, chose one, stayed with one for 8 years, took him from 8 hotels to 32 hotels, left, rinsed, repeat, did it again with an owner that had 2 hotels. And then after a couple of years, it wasn't about the brick and mortar. It was actually about the people. I had a conversation with a franchise broker, and this was now 12 years ago. And she interviewed me and said, you really need to be in the coaching and the peer board space. And back then I was like, people make money at that.
Exactly. Like, what's that? Back in 2010 to 2009. Yeah,
exactly. And I said, tell me more. And I realized it was never about the brick and mortar. It was always about the people. And I reflected on everything that I'd already done in Marriott as a COO with the franchise companies. It was always about the culture. It was always about the development. It was always about the engagement. So I purchased a franchise called the Alternative Board, actually out in Colorado. And I had it for a year. I took a lot of bumps and bruises and sold it, and then have what I have now today under this umbrella. So I've sat in a lot of boats. I'm proud of the lessons and the bruises that I've taken along the way. And I'm thrilled to be able to share those things with the multitude, the industries that I work with. So that's how I got in it. And it doesn't feel like work. When people say, how many hours do you work? I'm like, I don't work. I love what I do. I love being able to see an owner, an executive light up when they have that pivotal moment. And Kris, I know you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's joy in it, and it's a great way to make a living. And so there it is.
That's awesome. It's your occupation, as
yes.
we've had another podcast guest has referred to it as her occupation. So I've stolen that, but I love it.
I like that occupation, and I've even said that I'm passionate about, but I'm obsessed about it. When I watch commercials and I watch movies, and every conversation I have, I don't turn off that engagement, that culture, that people impact. It's actually a bit of a disease.
Well, it's a good thing, because a lot of us have benefited, including our company, from working with you, Shelley, and I'm very grateful. You mentioned 3 kids, so tell us a little bit about your family life and what you like to do in your fun time.
Yeah, so I've got 3 amazing kids, 2 boys and 1 girl. So the girl sandwiched in the middle. I don't know that she likes being the middle child, but I'm 25 now, and 24 and 17. So we had a bit of a gap in there. But they're all amazing kids. They're all doing their own things. They're all active. The daughter is very much right after my soul and the entrepreneurial spirit that she has. And so that's fun to kind of to watch and see. And then my husband and I have been together since 87, and we got married back in 93. So we're going through life. We're muddling through life together without all those books that, there is no book. Well, I guess there are books on marriage. There certainly aren't on kids. If there are, I missed them along the way. And my kids know I've missed them along the way, because they're probably, going to be spending money on therapy in life. But no, fun things. I currently am obsessed about my health, which is a good thing. So I've realized over the years, I have to take care of myself, and in order to take care of others. And so I've always known that, but I've never done that. And so I'm happy to say I'm in that groove right now. So I'm diligent about walking 5 miles a day. So an hour of cardio, an hour of weights. And I've been doing that since the beginning of the year, and it's great and amazing.
Wow.
I believe in balance. And I, it's funny, you say you don't have time for anything, and I definitely have used that excuse. I don't have time to work out. I don't have time. No, we make time for things we really want. So it's not that you don't have time, you didn't make it a priority. Yeah. And if you're like listening, you're like hating on me, don't be hating on me, because I used to be that person too.
It's absolutely true. I have also rejuvenated to make time again for my fitness and my meal planning and being healthy. it does take time, but you have to make it a priority. But my fiance does not like to do any of those things. So I'm too busy. I'm too busy. So it's okay. We're in relationships with people and they're on their journey wherever they are. And I'm really glad that you're putting your health first. What time do you get up in the morning? Like 4:30 to get all that done before you, because I know you work so hard.
Yeah, it is sometimes 4:30 or 5. So
Oh
it
my
depends
God.
on what time zone I'm in, where I'm at, if I've slept, if not. There are a few, I prefer to go early morning than late night because I'm one of those people that when I stop, I drop. And that's that. I can't like stop, take a rest, chill. No, I'm do, and then done. And part of the motivation, quite frankly, my husband has MS. He was diagnosed now 17, 18 years ago. And so part of it is the motivation and the realization I've got to be here for him and the family in a little bit of a different way.
Right.
And so it's making sure that measure. So it's not a selfish piece. It really is for others.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, love that. So what is a fun fact, something that hardly anyone knows about you that you can share?
A few people do know because I use it during icebreakers often. I have dual citizenships. It's kind of an interesting thing. I was actually born in France. My
cool.
natural father was in the Air Force, so I'm a French citizen first and foremost, of course, on a base. So I've got dual citizenship, so that's kind of cool. But my passport's expired. What?
Oh, no.
Anyways, that's the only thing I could think of.
Okay. And did you retain any Francais from?
No, I can say parlez-vous français, but that's it.
That's it.
And I've got a friend who's actually helping me. She's from born and raised and has lived here in the States for a while. And she's always laughing at me when I'm trying to say things. And I've tried a few of the apps and I go in and out of it. But one of these days, it's on my bucket list.
Yeah. Well, you are working with early learning leaders and owners all the time using, and I want to dig into the tools that you kind of use the most, one of which is predictive index, and we're using that. And a lot of our clients are using it. Mm-hmm. Shout out to Kim Palmeras, who was the first client in Virginia Beach that started using it in my tribe. And she told the rest of the Academy members and myself about it and about you. And so I'm very grateful to that. So thank you, Kim, if you're listening to this.
Yes,
episode.
thank you, Kim. Kim and crew.
Kim and crew, Kim and Julie and the team over there with Courthouse Academy. So tell us a little bit about, you've really got your fingers in this pie now of the interesting and fascinating world of school culture, childcare, issues around leadership and how difficult it can be to lead an early learning program with all the distractions and the licensing and the needy parents and
the fires.
Children's issues, just constantly fighting fires. And that's where I came to the industry early days, was really helping people understand and even document and track how many hours they were spending fighting fires versus how many hours they were working on the business.
Yes.
So that they could advance and develop and further their journey and succeed. And so that has been a main focus of mine. And so talk a little bit about what you're seeing across the landscape, some of the main issues that you're helping people solve.
Yeah. So definitely commonality. And I will add there, it's not that different industry to industry. So I wasn't overly surprised when I came in. But top of mind for every owner, every director is turnover. And then I'm going to add, where do we get people now? Right. There's a lot of ghosting going on. There was a trend before COVID, but it's definitely a greater trend now for a multitude of reasons. So turnover, time to hire, those number of days that it's taking, what the process is, the inconsistent process is when I'm finding a lot of inconsistent processes, a lot of try this, do this. So opportunities around how are you trying to attract? And that goes to like the social media piece, the work that you all are doing with everyone, as well as the Grow Your Center, the things that they are doing as well. So that, how do we attract? Who are we looking for? It didn't seem to be a huge discussion around who you're looking for. And what I mean by that is above and beyond the skill set, but behaviorally, who are you looking for? And how does that work for or against your existing team and the culture that you want? And so that has been common conversation. And those are the biggest quick ROI wins as well. Time to fill the position and how you're spending your time is the immediate ROI that every single center that I've worked with is finding.
Yeah.
And I've got stats if you guys want those. And then secondly is seeing the reduction in turnover and moving that energy out of the interviewing, the godly interviewing process into onboarding and retaining.
Yeah.
And that leads you into the engagement, which of course brings profit in a multitude of ways and happiness. So that's kind of the sphere. Typically the lane is, Shelley, help me with turnover. And then we dive into that. We have to identify what are all the different pain points in order to discuss it, in order to come up with some different solutions, which goes straight to Traction's IDS, and it works. Keep it simple. It works.
Yeah. Well, one of the processes that I really feel like we at our company and in the academy have fixed, several clients have really, used one of your key tools. I mentioned predictive index to really get smarter and more sophisticated about their hiring process. And what I've tried with marketing and enrollment and hiring and all the business processes that we've coached on is over the last decade, giving people a repeatable process, a script, a process, a set of metrics for which to measure the effectiveness of doing so. And you talked about it, is once you button down your processes or stop just throwing things against the wall, whether it's marketing or hiring or what have you, you start getting better. You start finally seeing those results. And so we have adopted predictive index. And I have been looking for a long time, Shelley, for a tool that would actually be prescriptive and predictive on who these candidates really, how are they hardwired, to use some of your language, which I love that phrase. How are people hardwired? And so early days, I was using StrengthsFinder and to some degree Colby and DISC to help early learning leaders identify, like, what is here's a good example. The hardwiring of a great enrollment specialist is somebody in StrengthsFinder's world who has woo, which is winning others over, or influencing strengths. Natural influencer, natural salesperson, naturally wants to win parents over. And so we figured that out. We just saw patterns. It wasn't scientific. And we said, if you find somebody with woo, hire them for your enrollment specialist.
Absolutely.
And so to that, which is a very early day, not even a case study, if you will. So now and then thanks to Kim, found you, and predictive index, you actually fill out a job assessment before you even hire and determine what are the behaviors and strengths that you want from that job, from that role. Yeah. And then when candidates come in, they take the predictive index and you can match them on a scale of 1 to 10. So talk a little bit more about that, because that right there is such an amazing process change, a process improvement for us to make sure we're hiring somebody who's naturally hardwired to fit a specific role. And it's been a game changer.
I love it. And I appreciate all of your comments. And so to add on, I like analogies to kind of bring it together. So if we think about, number one, there's a lot of assessments out there. So for those of you who are listening or using an assessment, some things I want you to think about is make sure it's scientifically proven, scientifically validated and reliable, meaning it says what it measures, and it measures it consistently over time. And there are validity studies to back it up. And in this case, because we're talking hiring, they're also EEOC language protected. So cannot stress that enough. There are some out there. There's a lot of similarity. All of them have a measurement of Carl Jung's work with the 4 key denominators, or we call them factors. So they all have that foundational piece, but they are not all validated, reliable, and scientifically proven. So I just wanted to put that out there, because I certainly, some of them are and some of them are not. So that's one thing. The basis of predictive index, it's the entire life cycle. But here we're going to start with a focus on the hiring and the retention. So the beauty of it is that it's not just about, Kris, to your point, is I see somebody, I might figure out pretty quickly if they have woo or not, to your point. But here you're finding out the woo and more. So the woo, if you think about that piece is a dartboard. So we've got a dartboard and we've got darts. So the darts are the two assessments behaviorally. So we've got behavioral and we've got cognitive. So it's great to have that information, but if you don't know what you're looking for, which would be the dartboard itself, then you don't know when you get a dart, you're like, I like it. I think I like this dart, but I'm not sure where it fits. So you get a little bit of information, right? So I love the combination of predictive index because it gives us the dartboard, which is the creation of the job characteristics itself. So there, when you create that, you're getting 3 to 5 people on the team. And the intention is to have a bit of a 360 view, a commonality to get everybody on the same page, because Kris, your perception of a need of your team members might be different from Tom or Lisa or somebody else, right? So initially, you're taking it, the person who's living the job, if you've already got somebody in the role who's living it, because we want their perception, because when you haven't lived it in a while, perception's different, right? So the person living it, if there's a different person who's going to be training or hiring, which is usually in the HR recruiting piece, and maybe a senior or a lead, and then the immediate supervisor, which can be the assistant director, which is the obvious, and then the second level up stakeholder, which is usually the owner in this case. So within that, you're all weighing in separately on what are the characteristic needs of the job. And so you're checking off statements. Out of that, you get a profile. That's our dartboard. Then we take a quick link. We put it inside of LinkedIn, Bamboo HR, Indeed, wherever you have everything posted. And you're saying, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Candidate. And you're using their love language now too, because we can craft that off of the job profile. And you're saying to apply, click here and complete whatever your ad, what have you. And you're putting in there, complete these 2 assessments. And now it's all funneling into your system, beautiful for you. Out of that, to your point, candidates are coming in, resumes are coming in. You either go into your PI system first and you look at your ranking 1 to 10, 9 and 10s. You get excited. You're like, we're getting matches because now the dartboard is matching the darts that are getting thrown in. Then you go into your system and you do your quick screen. Come on, 2 minutes. We're looking at a resume. And then you do your phone screen.
Yes.
And then you do your Zoom call. And then you do your in-person. So that's the optimal way to do it, and you're intentional the entire time. You're getting everybody on your team on the same page. Check, because there's nothing worse than somebody being hired by somebody who interviewed them, who is not their trainer, who is not their supervisor, and the expectation is different. And the poor new hire is confused all the poo with what does right look like. So first of all, we craft that together, which is great. And then we have the ad. And then we go into the attraction mode and collection mode, and then we sort it, and then we look for those people who have the most checks. And the checks are, obviously, you are going to look at the skill set that they need to bring to the table. If there's required, certification pieces, but then behavioral check, cognitive check. And now when we interview them, we're focused right on what it is that we're looking for, because the system's going to give us an interview guide too. It's going to say, hey, investigate here. There's a gap. Or, hey, you've got a good match here. Go ahead and ask a couple of questions and confirm. And so you're going in with your eyes wide open. Is it perfect? I'm not going to sit here and say it's perfect and it's 100% guarantee, because nothing in life is that, other than, ultimate death. And we can add taxes for that right now. Some people avoid that, but you can't avoid death. So the intent is to make better business decisions in a systematic, intentional, rinse and repeat way, and to do it especially in today's world as well, to even do it in more of a from a legality standpoint. So then when you bring the person on for a hire, well, now when you're hiring them, you're going, hey, remember that assessment you took? Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the job description. Let's talk about why we hired you. Let's talk about how we expect you to show up. And so we're super excited you're here. You're hardwired this way. You're going to love this job. Let's get started on your onboarding. And then when things go a little bit, we just bring them back and go, hey, remember, we expect a lot of details out of you. Hey, remember, we've got, policy. We need you. There's a reason why we have the curriculum, it's easier, to bring them back in. And then the system can even match people together from a relationship guide and go, hey, lead teacher, assistant, administrative, front of the house, here's how y'all are going to get along. And we're giving each other the recipe cards up front. And so now that onboarding, and let's face it, the turnover happens typically, statistically, the largest is in the first 90 days.
Yep.
And then it's 6 months, and then it's at the year mark. I haven't come across any of the schools yet that's not the window, which means we may or may not be hiring right. So let's tighten there. What can we do better there? And then once we get that mojo down and we still have a leak, what's happening after that? How are you onboarding them? What are you saying? How are you showing them what right looks like? And how are you bringing them back in? And the tool can help you with those dialogue, those nuances, those recipe cards of how do you talk to me? How do I talk to you? How do you take action? How do I take action? How do you decision make? How do I decision make? And then it can pull the whole team together. And now we're getting to the fun stuff, which is how do I further engage you and retain you, which leads to happy people, happy life, happy students, happy mommies and daddies, happy owners, because profitability and consistency is there. And so that's sort of the measure.
Oh my God. So I know people that are listening to this or watching this right now are having a mind blow moment.
I hope so.
Because it's that powerful, guys. It really, really is. And I'm going through it right now, and I'm going to get Shelley's help later next week after we get off this podcast, because I'm in the process of hiring a new executive assistant, somebody who has to keep up with me, anticipate my moves, and dive in and have the initiative to be a self-starter, to go, this is where Kris needs help, boom, and not wait, and hang back and wait for me to. So it's a special hire, and every hire is a special hire, but I'm really excited, Shelley, to work with you on this with the nuances of the relationship, because this one's going to be, a special relationship,
it's a critical position
between a CEO and her executive/personal assistant. So, when you guys use this tool and you start really using it and understanding it, and it is deep, it's, there's a lot to it, and understanding the layers of everything it brings you. And that's what Shelley does best, is really helping people mine into it, slowly mine, and peel the layers back to really understand over time everything that predictive index and all the associated tools will bring you. So I love that.
Kris, I do want to add something you just said because it is important that, there are Skittles at the end of the rainbow with this. However, it is work. It's new language. It's a new tool. The tool is very user friendly. And when you go through training, it's about not using the tool, it's understanding and simplifying it in terms that the person going through can consume and then bring to the team. But it's critical that it's brought to the team, to your point, Kris, in components, little bits and pieces at a time. Just like there's a reason why you build on a curriculum for your students. It's the same method here as adults. And so oftentimes the very fabric that we think about when we're building a curriculum and the requirements for our students in the different age groups, we forget that adults need all that too. And so there isn't, I want to say it's turnkey. It is turnkey, but you've got to be deliberate about it and build, and you have to, use me as a resource. Some of the schools that are in are having an easier time than others using it now that we're into the second year. Kim and Julie are in year 3. But those that are in and so they, figure out those nuances. But the ones that are having a smoother transition and a greater ease and a greater ROI are the ones that consumed it a little bit at a time. And then said, when they were like, okay, we got that, we're comfortable with that. Now what? What else you got for me? Yeah. And then we would layer on. If you never got through that initial, we're going to do this first and build on it.
Right.
There's a couple of schools that are stumbling through because they just got lost. And the reality is the whirlwind takes over. And then you're like, what is the priorities? And Kris, that's why they have to lean on you and your entire team, because y'all can help them with that.
Yeah.
So just to reinforce that.
Yeah, no, thank you. And it's definitely a building block approach. And it's definitely like anything, once you internalize it and get used to it, you start mastering it. It's mastery of anything just comes with time and spending time with the tool or with the skill or the ability of, all of that we teach, with the phone script, with what have you. So
Yes.
I love that. With regard to employee engagement and then just overall culture, thinking a little bit more big picture, what do you also recommend that school, like how are you also working with schools in an ongoing way on employee engagement? I'll give you an example of one thing we teach is something as simple as doing annual or biannual employee surveys so that you can have anonymous information from your employees about the strengths and weaknesses of your organization. Yeah. And then the executives can get more of a 360-degree review about what's going on and really understand where employee morale and where culture is at. So talk to me a little bit more about that whole piece.
Absolutely. And to your point, 100% agree. And again, I would encourage to use something that's scientifically proven out there that has some consistency to it. But yes, once a year. And I'm going to add, if you're going to do something about it.
Right.
The worst thing we can do is to be a flavor of the month or get excited or to poll our team and do nothing.
Yes.
And then we wait a year and we poll again.
Right.
So yes, definitely once a year. One of the schools is actually doing it twice a year because they've gotten more, in a flow. But yes, once a year. Predictive Index has that too. It's called Diagnose. It's another module that can get turned on. So 4 of the schools have actually gone through that. One of them, we ended up using a survey monkey, and we used some of the components out of it, which is also fine too. And I use the science behind Predictive Index. The Predictive Index survey has a measurement of, it's a heat mapping concept, and it can roll up anybody who has, when you have multiple centers, the beauty of this is the centers can be separated because anybody who has a direct report of more than 5 people, which obviously each center would, you get an overarching report, but then you can get separate center reports. And anybody who has more than 5 direct reports can get a sub-report. Mm-hmm. So you can get intentional deep themes and high-level themes. The themes that we surround the questions by, and it takes maybe 10 to 15 minutes to take, but it's around the job. It's around the company, it's around the culture, the team, and the manager. And then you get a summation of overall satisfaction through that engagement piece. You get benchmarks with it. So industry benchmarks, you can see where you are in each of those plateaus. And then it automatic will give you your top hitting questions, your strengths. So you can keep doing those. I'm a huge proponent on not just where's the opportunity, what are we doing right? Wow, let's can that. Right? Let's keep going. You have to know that and to build on it. And then where are our lagging? There's always going to be a bottom group. So where's our lagging and how can, the two come together? Best practice to do that. You take the assessment, you then executive team, however big or small, you review the summation. If you've got separate data, you review the data separately with the group. And then the directors give the information, same high-level summary, back to the entire team. This is what we learned. Thank you for the strengths. We're going to keep doing this and this and this. Thank you. Here's our opportunities. We would love for you to give us some ideas around whatever it is, training and development. What do you want more of? Because again, what I might think as a director and owner might not be what the teacher thinks we need. Mm-hmm. So you've got to ask them. So then I take them through deliberately, high level, here's your results. Yay, yay, yay. Celebrate your successes. Here's some areas of opportunity. Here's some best practices around how to roll it out. Let's communicate and roll that out. Give everybody the hey, here's the results. And it's got to be hot and quick. Don't let it go stale. Here's where we are. Thank you. This is what we're going to do next. Who wants to volunteer to be on, like separate subcommittees? Best practice, the owner and the directors don't take the lead. They find people on their team who are engaged and want to help level up. They make them project people. You can give them a little incentive, a little rewards, this and that. They go out and gather all the other goodnesses of ideas. They bring it back. Now the owner and the director are listening to the presentation. Oh, by the way, you're developing your team to be leaders. too by doing that process, right?
Yep.
And then you're saying, great, give us a couple of days, a week, 2 weeks. We're going to take about what you said, and then we're going to come back. And then we do it again. We come back and we say, thank you for all the subgroup impacts. We're going to address these two immediate things. Here's all the ideas. Here are the ones that we're going to implement. And we're going to come back and we're going to measure them 30 days, 45 days, 2 months to see if it's working. If it doesn't work, we're going to pick up the next idea you have, or we're going to keep it going. And then a year later, we're coming back and we're saying, hey, it's time again. We want to get your input again. We bring the people in that were not there before, because there's usually new staff, right? And we say, hey, listen, this is what we do, because we want to make sure that we're on point with what we tell you we're going to do when we hire you. And you rinse and repeat. So the key is to call out the things that you're doing right. Anything that comes out from a culture standpoint. I'm about deliberacy. So don't dance around. For example, if the team asked you to work on training and development and you did something over the last 9 months specific to training and development, when the new survey comes around, remind them. Yeah. Because of the last survey, you told us we were doing great here and we needed to improve here. On the improvement areas, you all told us that we should do this. We did that. We can't wait to see if we're on point or not. So you're deliberately connecting the tissue of the efforts. We did this. Yes. Hey, listen, if wage and compensation is an issue, which often it is, you do a wage survey and you say, we did a wage survey. These are the findings. We don't pay, maybe our goal is to never pay the top. Our goal is not to pay the bottom. Our goal is to be towards the upper end, not the lower end, and we are. And so here's the pay range. This is where we are, and we're good with that when we look at the whole. So again, just call it out, transparency.
Yes, so transparency.
Yes.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. What you said about the survey and then doing nothing with it, what it brought to mind for me, Shelley, and I want to just ask, this will be kind of our final question, and then I want to tell everybody about how they can see us in action together and meet us. Is when you guys might do surveys and then you're so busy and we blame busyness for why we don't do maybe the things we should really be focused on, which is getting in front of the team and communicating the results of the survey and then taking action on it and explaining how we actually took action and what the benefit was, or we didn't really move the needle. We did move the needle. Let's do a feedback session in front of the whiteboard. Yes. More of that iterative conversation builds culture. And for your team members to see that you're listening, they took the time to do the survey and you're actually doing something with it. And I think, what I see as the difficulty with building cultures in preschools and childcare programs is, all of the firefighting and losing focus on what really are the key drivers of culture. And so, for example, one of the most cited studies on Glassdoor is a study they did on leadership that showed that childcare centers had one of the lowest overall cultures and leadership scores of any kinds of businesses out there and organizations. And so I'm just curious, your perspective. Now, you've worked in the service industry. You come from hotels, which could be very similar in nature to the service industry of childcare. But what do you see? What do you think are the reasons why it's so difficult to have great cultures in preschools and childcare programs, and to really have strong leadership?
You said a couple of things critical. One is, I call it the listening tour. We're so focused on enrollments often. And the time with the parents and, giving tours, that we're not listening to what the teachers are saying they need and they value. And we do not do a good job of rewarding good behavior to our culture values. So many of the centers that I work with, for example, respect is one of the values. So, when I talk to them or when I'm on site with them, I deliberately want to know what the values are. And if it's respect and I catch teachers in the act of doing that with coworkers, with students, with parents on the tour, I'm deliberately going to call it out and go, that was a great example of being really respectful. to your peer.
Mm-hmm.
And I make a point of it. So, and I give that example because we don't do that very well. We don't go on listening tours, or we don't listen. We may ask questions, but we're not listening. So listening tours.
Mm-hmm.
And the number two is the difficulty is we're not clear on what right looks like. And I say we as owners and directors are not clear on what right looks like. And if we're not clear and we can't call out what success is as a teacher and correlate that directly to our values, that correlate directly to the action words and our mission and our vision. And if we don't even have a culture statement or culture philosophy that's written and documented and referred to, and we don't onboard to that, I mean, we're just immediately, all the way back to the interview process. You got to talk about culture. You got to say, we have a culture of respect. What does respect mean to you? That person is going to articulate, going back to like the woo example, right from the get-go. And again, if you're like thinking inside of your head, oh my God, yes, they get it. And then you onboard them. Onboarding has to be delivered around your culture. We not talking policies, and not talking handbook, culture around the value. We do this, we say this, we see this, we hear this, our action is this, putting those guardrails up. And
mm-hmm.
quite frankly, that is the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
That is the opportunity. We overcomplicate it. My recommendation to your listeners is pick one value, stick and focus on the one value for 30 days, everybody in the center, write it out, capture pictures, write stories, and call it out. It's like when you get you buy a new car, all of a sudden you see it everywhere in that color. You do that when you focus, right? So the suggestion is focus on one value at a time, build on it, call it out. I call that creating culture playbook pages. And you'll find it's not as complicated as you think. And you're also defining this is what respect is, and this is what it isn't.
Yeah.
And you're calling that out. So anyways.
I love that. Yeah. It all goes back to the core values and the behaviors that are demonstrated by those core values. Can't say it enough. And I love that. I love the pick one core value and really focus on it. That's amazing. Because one of the interview questions that I sometimes have fun asking is, you've seen our core values in the job ad. They're in everything, on Indeed. They're there. They're listed. People love that, by the way. When we put our core values in our ads, we got about a 30% bump in quality responses because that's what today's millennials really want, right? Yes. I say, are you of these 5 core values, which is the one that speaks to your personal value set the strongest and why?
Love that.
That's kind of a fun question, but I do like the examples that are more experiential and behavior oriented too, specific to a core value. But that helps me understand what's really driving that person. And if I get a complete deer in the headlights, it's like, okay, probably might not be the right fit, but exactly. You're using,
or their explanation is different than yours because, respect means different things, accountability.
Sure.
And people say, we need to be accountable. What exactly do you mean? I have an open door policy. What do you consider an open door policy? Well, my door's open. Okay, really? I think we need to go a little deeper. But anyways.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Shelley, you're going to be with me together in Las Vegas at the Paris Hotel for the 10th annual Child Care Success Summit. I can't wait.
Super psyched.
Yeah, me too. We'll be hanging out on Saturday. We have a panel planned for you guys. So we are doing a really cool panel all about the world of professional assessments with case studies and clients, preschool owners on the panel with us. And, got to go broad about all the different assessments that are out there. And then we'll narrow in on specific results that people have had with predictive index and other tools. I am also DISC certified, so I can speak to that. But I think, and we've never done a session on this before, Shelley. So I'm so excited because I think people are confused by assessments. They don't know which ones to use. They don't know how they might fit together or all the application of them.
Some of them are complementary to each other, to your point. You just have to know, what am I looking for?
Yeah. So I'm very, very excited about this session with you and just to be together with you live, of course. So if you have not gotten your tickets yet, y'all, you got to book your tickets for the summit. August 31st is the end of the summer deadline in terms of the best ticket deal. So definitely get your tickets booked. which is just a few days after this podcast will release, believe it or not. So
better get on it.
Get on it. And that's at childcaresuccesssummit.com, just in case you guys need the link. Now, Shelley, tell us how people can find out more about you and your awesome company.
Thank you so much again for having me on. I can't wait to see everybody live and to hear all the questions that come out and just to the energy that your summits bring. So I'm really psyched for that, and in a great location. So, but you can find me on all social media outlets. However, just go to Shelley at premierrapport.com is my email address.
Okay.
And my website is premierrapport.com, premierrapport.com.
Great.
And you can find all of the things that I do in specific. And the other thing, for those of you listening to this podcast, is if you mention that you heard this on the podcast, I'd be more than happy to send you over a behavioral assessment, complimentary, so you can check out what all the fuss is. And when you come to the summit, you're going to hear some of the ROIs straight from the mouth of the owners themselves that are using it. I mean, some of the immediate ROIs are first year 200%. One of them, actually, a year and a half in, it has a 1,200% return on what they spent.
Wow.
Through true metrics. One is the speed in which they're able to hire and the time they're spending. And then the second, coupling their turnover reduction. There's some crazy numbers that equate to crazy dollars.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to use that money in a different way?
Yes.
So
I know.
anyways,
I do.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
And not to mention return on time.
Oh, yes.
Which is massive, because if you're spinning your wheels doing all of this interviewing and then hiring the wrong person for the seat, then
it's draining. It drains you.
So
it drains everybody involved. It does so much damage to the company. I was actually talking to one of your schools today, and she's like, Shelley, how can I? It was an owner. She's got 4 locations. How do I shift the directors who are okay with having the DNF players? I was like, it's tough. It's even tougher now. But the reality is you have to understand the pain point of keeping them versus not keeping them. Mm-hmm. And then we went through, a litany of that. But I get it. I get what y'all are going through. And there is a better way. There is a better way.
Yeah, there is. There really is. I mean, there's countless case studies of people who just, they have that open and honest, transparent conversation with their team. And they say, we had to let go of these DNF players. They were dragging us down, and we want our beloved team to rise up together and not be drained by that. And we're going to all pitch in, and we're going to all, get some overtime, and we're going to all pitch in, and we're going to hire the right people, and we're going to go forward. And so I think just your team will be really, really happy. I think
and they'll respect you more.
Yeah.
Because if not, you lose the good players.
Yeah. Yeah. Nothing faster. What my kind of quotable there is, there's no faster way to turn an A player into a C or a D than by keeping your D's and F's.
Amen, sister. Absolutely.
All right.
You guys heard it today from Kris. Amen.
Amen, honey. Great. Shelley, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate your time. We could talk for 17 more hours about this topic, but we will save that for Las Vegas.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.